I'm on a mission to increase representation of angel investors by sharing what I learned and interviewing both investors who share their advice and founders who share their journey. My name is Martina. Welcome. Today I'm interviewing my former boss. Emily Batt and I met at Kayak many years ago, and she was briefly my boss before I left Boston for the West Coast. She's currently an investor at Pillar, and she is an absolute powerhouse. She's a trained mechanical engineer turned product leader. She's built and led product teams at Kayak, Google, and early stage startups. And she's also written an article about navigating building products at each stage and the differences, which I will link below. And she has 3 patents to her name. Welcome, Emily.
Thanks, Martina. Happy to be here.
So excited that you're here. So Emily, I know I just gave a brief intro, but would love to dive in a little bit more. Tell us about you.
Yeah, thanks. I think at the heart of it, I'm a very curious person, and that's sort of how I've ended up in investing, because this is probably the most intellectually stimulating job that you can have every day. I get to talk to founders who are working on tons of different types of technologies, solving a bunch of different problems. But I really got my start studying physics in undergrad, which I picked because I thought if you could figure out how to study something from first principles, you could take it in any number of directions. And from there, I began my career as a mechanical engineer at this incredible invention studio in Boston. It's called Fixed. They basically invent things for other companies that are stuck on hard engineering problems. And so I really learned how to roll up my sleeves there and take something from an idea to something you could hold and see and launch in the real world, which was a lot of fun. And the longer I spent at that company, the more I realized there was this whole other part of product development I was missing, which was the software side of products. And every product I was working on was becoming connected or smart or IoT-like, and so I got really curious about building digital products, not just physical ones, and that led me to explore product management, and that's how I discovered Kayak and had a really awesome team in Martina, which was a blast. And from there, I started getting more curious about how building products can intersect with building businesses. It's one thing to build a product, but it's a different thing to build an organization, to build a business model. And so I decided a great way to learn about this could be business school. I ended up getting an MBA at Harvard and a master's in engineering at the same time. And from that, I worked on starting a company with 2 of my best friends, and then eventually went to Google and had sort of more adventures in product management. And when the opportunity came up to work for one of my business school professors here at Pillar, I jumped at the chance because I thought spending more time in the entrepreneurial ecosystem could teach me a lot about what it meant to start something from nothing and build it to something really sustainable and exciting.
That is so cool. Something that I still really believe in is that I feel like hardware is the pinnacle of product management.
It's true. I saw a tweet from Paul Graham that said a YC founder going through this year's cohort is doing a software-only product when he used to work on hardware and felt like he was playing on easy mode. I feel like that was very apropos.
Yeah, exactly. So how did you get into tech?
I think that my first exposure to the world of tech was when I was a kid using dial-up internet to connect to eBay so that I could trade pewter wizards. I was really into collecting.
Hold on. For those people, what are pewter wizards? Because I had to look this up.
I should have brought one. Okay, teeny tiny little wizards made of pewter, often with crystals, and I got very into collecting and trading pewter wizards, and the only way to do that at the time I was in rural New Hampshire was to buy and sell them on the internet. And so I would look for the wizards that came up for 99 cents and I would flip them for $9.99, and had a great time doing it.
Oh my God, Emily, once a boss, always a boss. So, okay, do you still have any?
I have one, my favorite one. Yep.
Oh, okay. I love that. Switching gears a little bit, rumor has it that you wore a unicorn onesie to work one day.
I thought that story might die eventually, but yeah, I really did.
Well, what happened? Tell us.
In 2017, a friend made a bet that I wouldn't wear a unicorn onesie to work, and I did. I almost forgot. The bet almost expired, but we made it happen, and it was a lot of fun.
Did you get anything for that except for just bragging rights?
Eternal bragging rights.
Yeah, for sure. And it's memorialized with this video as well.
That is true. That will not die.
Okay, so Curious from your perspective, something you wish you had known transitioning from an operator role into an investor role.
One thing that really surprised me is that when you're investing at the seed stage, lots of times you're finding teams and entrepreneurs before there's any paper trail of progress. So there cannot be a lot of analytical rigor because there's not a lot of data yet to analyze. And so that was something that made me feel a little bit like a fish out of water at first. I was very used to running A/B tests or deep diving on customer journeys and looking for patterns and numbers and usage. But usually you don't have that on day zero. And so making investment decisions, even though it is a financial endeavor, it can sometimes feel more intuitive and rigorous. And that mindset was something that took me a while to come to terms with.
I definitely learned the analytical rigor at Kayak, so I can definitely relate to that.
Exactly. Miss that.
How has your experience as a product leader helped you as an investor?
I think an incredible thing about having a product management background is that every founder is trying to build something. And so you have this platform on which to relate with founders right away. It's very easy for me to dive into a product problem with a founder immediately because I've seen such a wide variety of product problems. And so I think that gives us a common language and a way for me to add value pretty quickly. And also just a way to relate and have a fun conversation that can be productive no matter what the investment decision is.
So as someone starting out, this term I hear a lot is deal flow. I don't know what that is. I have no deal flow. So can you elaborate, for someone who, like me, is just really kind of getting their footing, what does that mean and how do you generate deal flow?
I think of investing as consisting of 4 stages. The first is sourcing new opportunities for investment. Then you're diligencing those opportunities and deciding which ones to invest in. Then you're negotiating the terms of the deal with that team. And then after you write the check, you're supporting the team. And so deal flow really refers to that first bucket of sourcing new investment opportunities. And I think a great way to start is by cultivating your own personal and professional network. When you first become an investor, no one naturally knows that you're investing unless you tell them. And so you have to make a concerted effort to let people know that this is something you're interested in doing. And what I found is that there's actually a really long lead time for some of those conversations to come back. So when I jumped into investing, I called some of my entrepreneurial friends and said hey, I'm a seed stage investor now. If you're exploring some ideas or expect to be exploring new ideas soon, keep me in mind. I'd love to brainstorm on those with you. And some of those phone calls didn't come back for a whole year, but you have to try to stay top of mind for these people. And a great way to do that is by figuring out what they're thinking about today and being helpful as early as possible. So that could be potential customer introductions to help them with customer discovery. It could be introducing experts that are in adjacent spaces that could be helpful to them. Or it could just be spending some time as a thought partner around a whiteboard, which is always a lot of fun. So I think cultivating your personal and professional networks is a great place to start. And then a second way to pursue deal flow is to plug into the ecosystems that already exist. So chances are your city has some startup meetups. You can start attending those. VCs will throw events all the time for for folks thinking of founding a company. You can attend those. I think we're seeing that these communities are more distributed than ever. So find startup discords, join Slack groups. I'm in 3 or 4 active product management Slack groups that always have people jumping from product management to founderhood, and that can be a really great place to start.
When I talked to you about this, I immediately signed up for a pitch event in Austin, which was really fascinating to be part of.
Yeah, I think one of the hardest parts of getting started is you don't necessarily know what good looks like in a pitch until you have a number of reps to draw from. So the best thing you can do to get started is just put yourself in the places where people are pitching so that you can start to calibrate your own, build your own barometer for what excites you and what types of pitches you want to get involved with.
That makes total sense. So what are you looking for when you speak to companies then?
The number one thing that I'm looking for in founders is the ability to secure resources in the face of scarcity. I think this is the most important thing a CEO ever has to do. The need for this skill never stops because in the beginning, your scarce resource when you're starting a company is usually capital. And so CEOs that are great fundraisers are really just good at securing the scarce resource of capital. But pretty soon, capital won't be the scarce resource, it will be talent, and you'll have to recruit people to join your company. And then after that, it will be customers, and you have to figure out how to market and sell your product, your solution. And so I'm looking for people who have that natural sales ability, but it's not one size fits all. You don't have to be extremely charismatic. You just have to know how to listen to your audience, figure out what they need, and then put it in terms that they can relate to. And so I think that ability to secure resources in the face of scarcity is the number one thing I'm looking for.
What is one tip you'd give someone that's starting out in the investing space?
A great place to start is talking to other investors and figuring out how they determine their own style. An amazing thing about this job is that there's no one right way to do it. And so if you have the opportunity to learn from a number of different investors and sort of pick the parts that feel aligned with your own approach, then you can land on your personal style a lot faster. So, don't just talk to early stage investors, talk to investors at a number of different stages, talk to angels, talk to VCs, talk to growth investors, and figure out what their days are like and what parts of that are really exciting to you. I also think that a great foundation is just understanding the venture jargon. It's not that complicated, it's just its own language. And so sometimes you have to learn how to translate normal language into VC language. And there's a book called Venture Deals, which is a wonderful primer for doing that. It does a great job introducing the jargon and the lingo of business.
Thanks to your tip, I read Venture Deals, or like most of it. And then this is a tangent, but I left Carbon, our dog, she's like sleeping right there, out when I had like a full day at work, and I came back, she completely shredded the book. It looks like it went through, I don't know, like a garbage disposal. And she normally doesn't do anything like that. So I don't know. She's got something against it. Some bad vibes around that.
I think that's a great sign. I think it means you're about to rip up the playbook and come up with something better.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to stick with that. Thank you. So I read pretty much all of your tweets, and something that came up quite often was manufacturing and chip production. And I'm assuming there are ties to parallel fluidics around that, but I'm curious, like, is that the space is that the space you're excited about, or like what space are you most excited about investing in?
Yeah, I love manufacturing because I think that we are at this incredible moment in the history of technology where artificial intelligence is augmenting human creativity in a way that's never existed before. So it's really easy for us to envision anything we can imagine right now because we have these generative models at our fingertips. You could type in a dog surfing while chewing up Venture Deals, and you can have a picture of that happening instantly. And I really feel like the next step in that trajectory is that people are going to want to make the things that they can imagine. So I want a gold-plated pair of sneakers. That's really cool, as long as you can make the gold-plated pair of sneakers. And so I think there's this huge opportunity to make manufacturing more efficient, more nimble, more responsive, and more on demand. And so that's an area I'm really excited about.
Hardware, it's where it's at. Okay, we're going to move on to the next segment, which is name TBD, featured deals for now. I want to kind of dive into your first deal, your latest deal, the deal you're most excited about. Tell us about the company. How did you even find out about them?
A recent deal I'm really excited about is actually in the manufacturing space. This team is tackling the inefficiencies of garment production. Turns out if you want to make a sweater today, it's actually really complicated and usually involves like 9 months of back and forth between a designer and the production facility. And they've invented software that can take the sketch of a garment, compile it into machine code that can generate a garment on demand. So it's actually pretty non-trivial math about the way the knots of a knit garment connect together. So it's both appropriately nerdy, really cool and mathy, connected to manufacturing, and has a huge environmental impact.
That's incredible. I'm so amazed that people who like think about these things and like solve those problems.
It is really amazing.
Yeah, how did you hear about the company then?
Yeah, I was really lucky to get connected to this company. Two former coworkers actually referred this company to me, so I ended up hearing about it from two people that I really trust, and that did a lot to bring it to the top of my attention.
How did the due diligence go?
The due diligence on this deal was focused on two primary directions. So first, we wanted to dig in on the size of the garment market. Turns out it's enormous. And the cool thing about this technology is it can actually be applied to anything that's knit. So it's not just garments, it could be upholstery, it could be knit fabric in automotive. So there's a lot of applications here beyond sweaters, but sweaters actually make up a huge part of the market. So the first was on market sizing, and then the second was on understanding the state of the technology. At the most basic level, I think that the best products, I think this is a framework that IDEO developed. They said the best products sit at the intersection of what is desirable, what is feasible, and what is viable. Desirable means does someone want it? Feasible means can we build it with the resources we have at hand? And viable means does this product employ a business model that will sustain itself long term? And so when we're doing diligence, we're focusing a lot of times on the desirability and the viability, because we think that lots of times teams, the resource that they need is capital. And what they're telling us is capital is the only blocker here. If you give us the capital, it is feasible to build this solution. And so we're trying to poke at the desirability and the viability to understand, is this something people want? And is there a business model associated with it that can sustain the product long term? So we're not just trying to understand the technology necessarily, we're trying to understand how the technology will monetize. And I like to say that the desirability and willingness to pay are not the same thing, because I can think of plenty of products where the users aren't the ones paying. You can think of anything sustained by an advertising model, say. You actually have someone else coming in and paying for the business to sustain itself. So those are the three buckets that we're really interrogating. And in this case, it was really focused on how this business can make money and whether enough people want this thing for it to exist and sustain itself.
I'm learning so much about proper due diligence, so thank you for sharing.
Of course.
And how have you been involved since you all closed the deal?
We actually just held our first board meeting, so it's very, very early still, but we've helped on a couple fronts. I think the first thing that the team did was recruit some really key hires, and so we helped source some of those hires and then interview a couple. We've also helped them secure office space, although they did most of that themselves, but we try to help find real estate when we can be helpful.
Yeah, it sounds like you're a great team for them then.
I hope
What
so.
did you learn from the deal?
Well, one thing I really loved about looking at this deal was that every person on the team brought a really specific strength to the team. And so it was helpful for me to see how they work with one another to understand how the team will grow long term. For example, there's someone on the team that has deep expertise in actually manufacturing garments. And that person's going to be critical to recruiting other types of talent that has that expertise, which is pretty rare. And so what I learned about working on this deal is how important it can be to have someone who, if there's a niche area of knowledge, to have someone that really knows that and can own the growth of that part of the company.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's like you essentially need like a subject matter expert to help drive things forward.
Perfect way to say it.
All right, we're going to move on to our next segment, which is called Never Again. So can you share a time that you failed, just like totally messed up, and what you learned from that?
One of the hardest parts of switching into an investing role was learning to negotiate every day. This is not something that I previously needed to do, and it was an area where I felt pretty uncomfortable. But having the opportunity to practice it regularly has been huge. And one of my first lessons in negotiating was on an early term sheet that my team was developing. We had made an offer, we had extended a term sheet, and then we didn't hear back from the team. And so my gut reaction is to text the team, send them a note explaining why we're so excited for the opportunity to work with them, basically send a love note to the team and see what comes back. And my manager let me know that in negotiating, that's actually a way to really weaken your position. If you've made a fair offer, the best thing you can do is extend it to the team and give them time and space to think about it, and not add any love notes or any additional context. Just wait and see, and that puts you in a stronger negotiating position. So that was absolutely helpful in subsequent negotiations, and also helped me understand to sort of question my own intuition so that I could learn best practices rather than what I would just naturally default to. It really was helpful to have a feedback loop on practice and getting feedback on how to do it well.
So did they sign the term sheet?
They signed!
Yay! That's great. Great learning, though.
Too.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move to the next section, which is rapid round. You work in Boston, you grew up in New Hampshire, you live in Maine right now. Lobster roll or clam chowder?
Clam chowder.
All right, just checking. 3D printing or Web3?
3D printing.
That's fair. Free seed or chia seed?
Chia seed in my yogurt.
Yeah! I love it. Okay, tell me why.
Oh, it's so good. It's so crispy and refreshing. Or if you boil them, and they're like spongy and tasty.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. Okay, so wrapping up, what would you recommend someone that's just starting out to listen or to read?
Yeah, I actually love the 20-Minute VC podcast by Harry Stemmings. It's high information per minute, and it's pretty delightful. I also love the Acquired podcast. I think they do a wonderful job blending history with present tense, and gives a lot of context and helps paint a picture of the industry sort of across its evolution, which I really love.
I have listened to the Andreessen Horowitz Acquired podcast that you sent me, so that was really fascinating. And I will definitely link both of those podcasts in the description, so thank you for sharing. Yeah. So Emily, we're wrapping up. What do you have going on? Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter occasionally. I'm there like once every 6 months, but I'll answer my DMs. I'm @_mbatt, and otherwise you can find me at mbatt.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Emily. Sharing so many nuggets of wisdom. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Martina. It's a blast.
Emily is just the best. I am so glad I got to speak with her, and you can imagine how amazing it was to report into her for a period of time while I was at Kayak. Thank you all so much for watching. Next week, I'll be talking to Andrea Ippolito, who's the founder of SimplyFed, and she'll be sharing her journey on fundraising as well as founding a company, which is just so vulnerable and so incredible. I'm so grateful she was able to join me. And definitely don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with a friend.